Imagine you're a closeted preteen homosexual. This could either be very easy or very difficult, depending on who you are. You're so closeted you don't even know yourself that you aren't heterosexual and or cisgender. No, that's just a fun surprise for you later. Right now, your main concern is the fact that something about you is just different from the rest of your peers. You probably don't have many friends, and the ones you do have are just as weird as you are. In this scenario, you have a lot of options for ways to entertain and express your awkward little hormonal self, ways that often would eventually become cultural markers for the LGBTQ community. With internet access, you could get up to a lot of innocent shenanigans as you try to figure out who you were and your place in the world. If it's not obvious, I'm talking about myself. Specifically, I'm talking about a large population of pre-gay young people. I want to explore one such cultural phenomenon that doesn't get a lot of attention, one that I'd never given much thought until I later came to terms with my own queerness. When I was younger, in the good old days of Adobe Flash, MMORPGs for kids were all the rage. And where there were MMORPGs, there were kids using the alternate reality to experiment unknowingly with their gender and sexuality. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of an MMORPG, it stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. In the world of the game, you're able to chat and play with countless other real-life players, albeit strangers. Gameplay can vary widely across different games. Some are more action and quest-based, whereas others are basically glorified chat rooms. Though they're called role-playing games, they differ slightly from, say, the Dungeons & Dragons type of roleplay, where you act out a character that you've designed. More often, in games like Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft, you can choose and customize your avatar, which is the physical manifestation of yourself in-game, but otherwise you are free to act like your normal self. Or not. More on that later. There were lots of popular MMORPGs that kids like myself played, in addition to the more mature ones, with prominent examples being Club Penguin and, my personal favorite, Animal Jam. In these, your choice of avatars were customizable animals, not over-sexualized elf ladies, and interactions between players tended to be more moderated to keep things family-friendly. Or try to, at least. Kids are creative. I want to explore how the players use these game mechanics to play around with their identities. But in order to understand this better, you have to first understand what I call the Minecraft girlfriend phenomenon. So, what happens when you combine a bunch of kids going through puberty with an online multiplayer game where they can game and chat with, presumably, other people their age? They all try to date each other. The idea of romance is such a major part of our culture at large, featuring prominently in the movies and TV shows kids watch growing up, and the preteen age is about when they start to go from passive observers of society to participants in it. They aren't mature enough to understand what it really means to be in a relationship, yet they chase it nonetheless, because at an age where your self-image is so nascent and fragile, all you really want is external validation. A sign that you're desirable to someone, even in a capacity so superficial as being good at gaming. Or they just do it for the bit, because even if it doesn't start as a bit, it definitely became one. I mean, there's an entire genre of memes dedicated to the concept of a Minecraft girlfriend. This was possible because of internet-hosted third-party servers such as Lifeboat or Hypixel that let kids play Minecraft minigames with each other. I personally frequented Lifeboat survival games, and it wasn't uncommon to see in the server chat people advertising themselves as single and looking for a girlfriend or boyfriend. In fact, in my search through old footage of the Lifeboat lobby, I found this exact phenomenon happening over and over. Oftentimes, in kids' games like these so-called relationships were short-lived. I had a Minecraft boy ask me to be his girlfriend, and we dated for all of maybe 3 games before I got disconnected and never saw him again. It's a bit difficult to exchange contact information when everyone in the server can see what you're saying and what you're role-playing in the secret rooms in the lobby. I'm getting flashbacks just talking about it. This wasn't limited to Minecraft, of course, since there are other games like Roblox with similar gameplay and, I'm sure, similar shenanigans. But that's just what I like to call this idea of kids exploring romance, albeit superficially, in-game. It's also worth noting that, moving forward, much of my knowledge about this topic is based on anecdotes, especially my own, so I am limited to what I personally played and experienced. As such, I probably won't be able to do many games justice, but I feel that the overarching themes I'll talk about are probably generalizable. With that being said, let's hear some stories about kids pretending to be a different gender in MMORPGs. My vice of choice in middle school was Animal Jam. There's so much lore with this game that I can't even begin to cover, so I've included a link in the description to an Animal Jam deep dive video by Izzzyzzz, by which I feel personally called out. The long and short of the game is that you could have multiple avatars from a wide selection of different animals and explore the virtual world. Some people did adventures, some were really into trading, and a large portion of the community was obsessed with role-playing. I'm sure there's an entire essay that could be written on what Animal Jam did for the furry community, but I am not the person to speak on that. This one room, called Sarepia Forest, was kind of the role-playing hub, another thing I could go on about for hours, but I'll restrain myself. And that's where I spent most of my time. I'd hang out with the other kids doing Warriors roleplays, and I would often look for a cute guy to flirt with. This is undoubtedly just as embarrassing to hear about as it is for me to talk about, but bear with me. Anyway, if no guy was present in the room at the time, or there were some, but they weren't reciprocating my attention, I would simply leave the room, shift into my male avatar, and come back. Then the girls would be all over me, and I would just flirt with them instead. As you can probably tell from my choice of backdrop, this was indicative of something a little deeper than just me wanting attention. When I stopped playing Animal Jam, I forgot all about doing this, until I downloaded TikTok, around the time I started questioning my sexuality and saw I had not been alone. I also asked some of my friends if they have experienced doing this, and I got some stories. I'd say circa 2013, I played Animal Jam a lot. I grew up as a tomboy anyways, so it didn't seem weird to me that I pretended I was a boy online. I had some characters that had girl eyes and some with boy eyes, and I'd switch back and forth. I'd go present myself as an option for a boyfriend looking for a girlfriend, and I got a girl. Lucky me. We actually dated for a while. We wore matching outfits and would get online to hang out. Then one day she found out I had girl characters and got weirded out, and I lied and said I shared the account with my sister. I did not. Then we tragically went our separate ways after that incident. I think it's funny, I never really questioned my sexuality until high school. The Animal Jam thing never felt weird to me. I wasn't embarrassed or anything about it. I remember even casually telling my mom I had a girlfriend on Animal Jam. She doesn't remember this when I asked her about it recently. It all makes sense now, since I'm definitely gay now. And another story from a queer non-binary friend, this time from a game called RuneScape. Okay, this was in late middle school. You could build houses in RuneScape, fun fact, and people would throw parties. You can also freely change sex, so naturally I made my character a girl and was going to simulated house parties. I met another player who asked me to be his girlfriend. We ended up having a wedding at his house and adopting a child. He made a second account to be our kid. Then he asked for my phone number and I blocked him. I've also found examples of people who would play as the opposite gender, not in order to get a girlfriend or boyfriend, but simply because they enjoyed the way people in-game would refer to them with different pronouns, and only later would find out they were, in fact, transgender. What I find most interesting about this practice is that our avatars in these online worlds were extremely gendered, even when the games themselves had no existing gender binary. In Animal Jam and Club Penguin, you don't choose a boy or girl avatar, and all clothing items can be worn by anyone. In a lot of other games, you didn't have to stick to the gender that you chose at the beginning, you could change whatever you wanted. In Animal Jam, the female animals aren't given weird anthropomorphized curves a la Scrat from Ice Age, yet there was just an understanding within the game, at least in Animal Jam that I know of, that certain things were associated with girls versus boys. That applied to the colors and patterns you picked for your avatar, the clothes you wore, the names you chose, even the animals you picked, and perhaps the most well-known, if you had the girl eyes or boy eyes. I found this satirical YouTube video in which she says that out loud, giving voice to the dynamic we as players all just kind of accepted.
The next step is you gotta find a man's. Now you gotta make sure they're a man's, and the best way to make sure they're a man's is by checking if their eyes are male colored or male the male eye thing. If they have eyelashes, that means they're not male.
Even the young queer kids, who were challenging traditional notions of about gender, were doing so within the bounds of self-enforced heteronormativity. A couple years ago, I deleted my original Animal Jam account and transferred all of my items to a different one, and I am deeply regretting this choice now because my original male and female wolves are gone. So that is a historical artifact that has since been destroyed, unfortunately, but I tried to recreate in my account that I still have access to what at the time I would have considered peak male form. So as you can see, the stylistic choices I was making were the name of the wolf that I chose. I wanted something that was like cool and manly and masculine, and the colors are like make me seem tough, and of course I have the boy eyes and I'm wearing different clothing than my girl avatar. So it all kind of just creates this illusion of a male avatar and therefore a male playing, when really it was completely fabricated. Heteronormativity is the sociological concept of a worldview in which the gender binary and roles are enforced and heterosexuality is considered standard. Heteronormativity is when boys grow up playing with action figures and Nerf guns, and girls grow up with baby dolls and Barbies, when every romance on TV or in a book or what have you is between a man and a woman. It's the reason so many kids grow up not realizing they're queer or trans or non-conforming with traditional notions about femininity and masculinity. Nothing they consume indicates it's possible, or if it does, it's generally mocked or villainized. Somewhere along the way, watching cartoons or scribbling in coloring books, kids picked up on the fact that eyes with eyelashes were used to denote female characters, and eyes without, male characters. So it's only natural that even in an atmosphere in which nonconformity is possible, we apply those ideas about gender that have been so ingrained into us from the beginning. We don't know how else it could be. As I mentioned before, the kids on these games are just beginning to put themselves out into the world, including virtual ones, and they crave that interpersonal romantic connection they've been promised. This is especially true for the awkward pre-gays whose road to romance is probably more fraught than others. They want acceptance, not rejection, so they play into the relative safety of compulsory heterosexuality in these little microcosms of heteronormative society. Sure, it makes for a good joke down the line once you have your rainbow flag flying high, but back then that was just how things were done. I find it fascinating, though, that even while we were upholding this very heteronormative status quo that kept our true identities repressed, we were subverting it. It didn't matter if you were assigned male at birth, because you could simply throw on some flower accessories and the girl eyes, and for all intents and purposes, you were a girl. Internet anonymity has allowed for so many online queer spaces to flourish. Now, I'm not arguing that games like Animal Jam were queer spaces, but the freedom these games allowed were ripe for queer development. YouTube channel Transparency, in a video about one trans woman's experiences with this phenomenon, has a great quote about this.
You see, the anonymity of a virtual world opens up a great amount of opportunities for players to examine aspects of themselves and lets them try out different identities that might be hard to play around with so frivolously in real life.
In these MMORPGs, gender is little more than a hat you put on and take off at will. It's tied solely to one's presentation. I can guarantee you my behavior, and that of others whose stories I've recounted here, was not fundamentally different when I pretended to be a different gender. And because these games are anonymous, all the other see is how I choose to present myself, not what I really look like or what's on my birth certificate. Were we lying to our fake girlfriends and boyfriends? Sure, but in such a low-stakes environment, it didn't really matter anyway. What was important is we learned, unknowingly or not, that gender and sexuality are not so set in stone as society would have us believe. And you were able to learn this from the relative safety of behind a screen, where the only thing to fear from your nonconformity being exposed was your Minecraft girlfriend leaving you. Thanks for watching.